Okay, so I said I wasn't going to do a Facebook Live until after Christmas, but my husband had to take care of some things today that he needed to do on his own. And so I figured I would just take advantage of this time because I don't want all of this information to build up and have be like a 3-day type of thing. And I got to find a way to wrap this up. But I mean, there's really no wrapping up anything when you think about it. It's just a constant evolution. But I will have a point where it will then go back to repeating the same stuff. So then I'm like, okay, but I was encouraged, I was inspired to talk about accomplishment, and I was inspired to talk about judgment, and of course about the programming of skinny. But really the inspiration to talk about judgment and accomplishment, because we are in a dying society, okay? Even though it's been normalized that we are in a dying society, it doesn't mean it has to be that way. But we are in a dying society, and those who are trying to accomplish something, told that if you do A, B, C, D, and F, and G, you would get social capital, you get paid very well, you'd be popular, you'd have a lot of following, you'd have, I don't know, an elitist mentality. And so accomplishments in a dying society, well, I would just say this, it doesn't mean much in my world now, because what are you accomplishing? Okay? And who are you trying to perform for? Who are you trying to impress? Who are you catering to? Who are you trying to please? Okay, in a dying society, being popular and developing inventions to accelerate the death process to be as painful or painless, really painless as possible, with the different inventions of cures and stem cell research. What are you accomplishing? You're accomplishing something for a dying society, just like the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, the system is trying to eradicate those who are trying to destroy, but through war, and then you can't tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys, so then you count your blessings that you're alive and try not to resist the system too much, because you might even develop something that will make war so much easier to develop and destroy others. That's what happened with the Prairie Fire. The little red book. The system figured out how to utilize the playbook of this Prairie Fire to develop whatever they need to develop to accomplish the goal of kicking off the scale down, which I understand why they're doing it. I have no issue with it because I will do everything they can to survive it. I can't control out there, so I can only control myself. But I'm not trying to make it easier for the system to scale me down or to scale anyone around me down. However, everyone has a choice and you can't make people's choices for them. So what am I accomplishing right now is I'm accomplishing saving myself. Doesn't mean that what I'm doing everyone else should do, but I can't speak for them. I can't even say if they can do what I'm doing. I don't even want to say they can't or cannot. I'm just saying that this is what I'm doing. And the system makes sure that you don't impose your way on somebody else, especially when it comes to what people perceive as saving somebody's life or saving them from pain and suffering. And I completely understand that because it's all relative, it's all perception. And so being popular in this society, being popular and getting prizes for your accomplishments may not be for what you think is, well, in my world, it's not something that I want to accomplish. I mean, right now with the whole J juice, people are using it as a cure. I'm not really impressed with that. I said a long time ago, J juice can't be used as a cure. Even the system recognizes that. Okay? And people will use it as a cure. And I've said, please don't, but I can't say that anymore, really. J juice was actually used as a catalyst to activate your immune system. And that was it. It was not supposed to be used as a cure. But that was one side of the accomplishments that the system is recognizing and using. And people are promoting it from that aspect. But people are not promoting the J juice in the world of activation, because already you have now this ionic atmosphere and climate change activating your immune system. So you don't even need the J juice. Now you just need to eat food and drink water and all that stuff. But that's the thing in a dying society. If someone will take something good and find a way to abuse it, find a way to mischaracterize it, and find a way to have it, to have the intention be what the full intention is for the overall system. Okay? And so, the thing with the whole J world is you're accomplishing things that you won't probably advertise anywhere on Facebook. You might talk about stuff, and you might even allude to something in the whole J world, but you won't say it specifically because people don't understand that the suffering and the pain and the food is what's necessary. And so it's hard to talk about something that is completely opposite of mainstream, even the alternative mainstream, who still wants to take away people's pain and suffering. And so the accomplishment is to survive all your diseases. I mean, let me just go to what I said, because that's important to understand the difference between the accomplishments in the mainstream and the alternative mainstream, and then the accomplishments in the J world. And the accomplishments in the J world is not something that you would brag about, because people would mischaracterize it. And so there's ways to say it without saying it, but even then, I don't know. People have difficulties. Okay? And so let me read that real quick, and I'll go to the judging aspect. Accomplishment. And I even have Albert Einstein there, because I got some clarification on how he was involved with the whole atomic bomb. It wasn't like he developed the bomb, but his actions that he thought the Germans were going to develop the bomb before the Americans would then prompt the government to go and do that bomb prematurely. But Albert didn't know that the Germans wasn't going to do it. He just had a fear that they were going to do it, which then encouraged the government to then go and do what they did over there in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So accomplishment, it is different based upon the world you live in or the world you desire to live in. Okay? And so I will say this, I am an inventor. Oh, absolutely. I invented a protocol that saved my ass. I dodged many bullets. Some people might find relief, as well as find, well, not even so much relief, because that's not really the intention, because that's going to come and go. But some people figured out that they'd be able to survive this climate change. So as long as they're able to do what they need to do to release the demons and eat all food. And so some people have found, relief in this, as far as just the faith in their own immune system. And so I am an inventor. I will just say it. I don't care if you're like, oh, Jillian, you're not trained. You don't have a degree in physics or chemistry or biochemistry. Well, in the mainstream and the alternative mainstream, when you get a degree in something, it's for a very specific thing for a company, and it's for an overall intention. And if you don't know what that intention is, and you've been normalized into dying someday, then you'll think that what I'm doing is like asinine or whatever, and that's fine. But I am an inventor because I developed something that is completely opposite of the mainstream, and I got backlash for it. I was punished for developing something that was going to save my own life. And even though, yes, in the beginning, it was like, you can't make these claims because of this, this, and this, the salt was what was missing in my world. The salt. Even though I may have overdone it, when you think about it, but then you drink water, but then you don't want to be cured. And the system was going to change in the future from 2016. And so we had to go through that 7-year process of evolving to understanding how powerful salt is. It has a curative effect, yes, but it also is an awakening that people could actually get and benefit from, or they were not aware of the awakening, or they weren't prepared for the energetic awakening. Okay? And so, yeah, so I developed something that developed an awareness and activated the immune system, and yeah, and here I am today. And so every inventor developed something that could be used and abused, or indirectly influenced series of events that could be used and abused against them. And so, when you're an inventor and you found something that's amazing for you, and even though it evolved from the actual original claims, it evolved, and people were either going to stay with the evolution or stayed stuck back then in 2016, 2017, it doesn't matter. There's always two sides you can look at anything that people develop to save themselves relative to the intention, the purpose, and all that stuff. Okay, so every inventor developed something that could be used and abused, or indirectly influenced series of events that could be used and abused against them or the world. Even Einstein regrets his role in the atomic bomb. And although people have mischaracterized my intentions, my only regret in the J world is people will use my juice as a cure, not as a catalyst. That's my only regret. But why is it a regret? Because just like Einstein, he had a fear. I had a fear of pain, and then I realized the evolution that needed to happen. I had to feel the pain. I had to suffer. I had to eat food. Einstein had a fear that the Germans were going to use the atomic bomb, and thought that they would actually develop it before the U.S. or before the Allies, and then he told whatever he told to the government, and then that's what happened. All right, Hiroshima. Okay, and so my only regret is people will use my juice as a cure, not as a catalyst. That's my only regret. And how was I to know this would happen? All cures are deadly, we figured out. No one should ever be cured in a dynamic environment, ever, if they want to live. It's called entropy, especially in this dynamic environment. But my juice was a catalyst to evolution and awareness, change, and potential in indefinite life. Catalyst does not mean cause, because there's a lot of things out there that would catalyze energy. Doesn't mean it was the cause of someone's death or life. It just means it was part of a series of events that triggered other things to happen that would have happened anyways if it was in another situation. But that just happened to be the energy that then developed and encouraged a series of events to happen. Okay? Action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. And so catalyst does not mean cause. You need food. You really don't need my juice anymore. And you need salt in your food. And you need meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. All right? So then when you have indefinite life under your belt, you're not in a hurry to perform to the level of outside expectations. So now I'm getting to the bread of accomplishment. You are able to slow down and smell the flowers while cultivating whatever craft you choose. Okay, you have that freedom. That's the beauty of my world, is the freedom to know you have the time. Right now, people are trying to buy time. Some people are out of time. Some people are wasting their time. Some people are counting the minutes on the clock to whatever. Okay? But now you're able to slow down because you have the time, the freedom. You're not in a hurry to accomplish so many things in our current society. And accomplishments are all relative to what you're accomplishing and who you are performing for. So even with all this whole imminent of World War III, it's not going to matter what they do out there. If an atomic bomb comes to your area, you're going to be dead anyways. There's no point in like fretting about it or trying to prepare for it. The only way to prepare for it is to adapt to your environment and hope that you're not the epicenter. That's it. Okay, that's it. You can't survive something that's right next to you. But if there's an atomic bomb that happens like 20, 30 miles away and you happen to get a little bit of the fallout and feel the pain of radiation, well, now you understand my world of eating food, eating your way through that situation and pulling out the crap. So you pull out all that radioactive material out of your ass and you keep eating the food and adapting to the changed conditions, because there will be changing conditions in a radioactive atmosphere. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but no matter what, if you can't control what's going to happen right next to you, and you still, if it's not next to you and it's far away, then you have control over how you adapt to the changed atmosphere. Okay? And so you're not in a hurry to accomplish so many things in our current society, and accomplishments are all relative to what you're accomplishing and who you're performing for. And not everyone would agree those are accomplishments to them in their eyes. You see, people thought that they could make a bunch of money from the J world. They thought that, oh, Jillian's trying to sell all her books so she can become rich. Nah, that was the initial thought, that we would have some kind of protocol that would be like so amazing, And then people were thinking like glomming on, trying to figure out how to make money off it and all this other shit. And then people realize you can't sell pain and suffering, and you really can't sell something that you feel yourself and know where you come from. And it's a world that is foreign to somebody else because they have their own stuff. And so you can't make money off of anecdotal evidence. You can't make money off of pain and suffering, but you can develop yourself. You can improve yourself. You can learn the things that you weren't able to learn before. And someone in that world over there, wherever they are, under the haze of their own bullshit and their own shit and filters, are not going to understand where you came from, where you're going, what you're trying to do. And so they're going to base what they think is accomplishment is based upon what is in the mainstream, catering to those mainstream lifestyles, which is you die someday, find a way to go out as painless as possible, partying excessively under the influence, and catering to a bunch of children. Developing stories for them, developing distractions for them until they can't handle the atmosphere anymore. That's pretty much the mainstream. Catering to the death culture. And children are part of the death culture until, unless they figure out, which I don't know how they're going to do that, because remember, children are small and they're either going to survive this environment or not. Okay, they can't change out their colon programming like that, like some adults can, because they have the reserves and the fluctuation to go back and forth. Kids, some kids, a lot of kids are going to be subject to the conditions, and it's just a matter of time if they can handle it or not. Okay? Okay, so you know where you're going. It's not something that you need to explain to everyone, though I do sometimes because I like to verbalize everything. But not everyone understands through the haze of their own filters. I'm not trying to make everyone understand. That's impossible. Okay? So in the J world, we're not trying to accomplish the things that your friends and family are trying to accomplish because they're still living in that death society, trying to find the latest cure, the latest operation, the latest invention for the military. Okay? Simply living is quite an accomplishment because you have to do things in order to live. Maintaining your life is quite an accomplishment. Developing the life you respect and love because it means it could change is quite an accomplishment. Love means change, dying and reproducing. Life is always bound to change. It doesn't mean you have to die, but it might mean the world you used to live in will die. The societal constructs might die. But if you do adapt, you might live to see the new societal constructs. Quitting all addictions. This is where people need to really understand. Quitting all addictions is quite an accomplishment because that would mean you didn't replace one addiction for another. So I quit smoking cigarettes. I don't drink alcohol. I don't need to smoke pot. I have no addictions. I like my little espresso machine that my husband got for me for Christmas because he really was he was insistent that he'd buy me something because he has all the things that he buys for himself. He's like, what, don't you want anything, Jill? I'm like, no, I really don't. I have everything I need. I have you. I have my computer. I have my thoughts. I have my ability to do whatever. I have the best fucking life. And you're relatively happy. Is anyone really truly happy all the time? No. But he has the ability to do what he needs to do whatever. And so, okay, so I don't have any addictions, but I do like my espresso. Would you call that addiction? Well, people could say that, but no, I eat food to support that adrenal release. Okay? But I don't have any addictions to cigarettes, to alcohol, to drugs, or anything else. So people say caffeine's a drug. Well, okay, fine. Okay, fine. But I am in tune with the power of suffering and sustaining the life around ending my suffering without dying. See, that's the thing about my world is that I'm able to suffer and I can live through the suffering and I know the steps I need to take to deal with it. Like yesterday, I'll tell you, it's been pretty aggressive out here. And so I felt my heart palpitations. I might have caught whatever that was going around, but I didn't have the same symptoms that I did. I mean, it was pretty, I had a little bit of bloody nose, but nothing major. And it was blowing my nose a lot. And it's a heart palpitations and eating and all that. But it wasn't the same symptoms I had the last couple of years. So I will go to sleep and take a nap or be really up and awake at 3 a.m. like I have been. And those are the symptoms that I experience. And so I'm in tune with the power of suffering. Sometimes it's just feeling the heartbeat and having to take a nap and just feeling the heartbeat just go up and down, up and down, up and down, and falling asleep and not being even aware that I was sleeping for that 40 minutes or an hour. And then sustaining the life around ending my suffering without dying. That's quite an accomplishment, that I haven't died in my sleep, even though I've been exposed to all these different variables out there, these different variants that are out there. Okay? And I don't treat my disease. I just eat food and pull out the crap when I need to. And so another accomplishment is standing in the face of opposition is definitely quite an accomplishment. Surviving scrutiny and backlash is an amazing fucking accomplishment. Many people cannot handle that, and they quit before they accomplish what they're set out to do. Not quitting is quite an accomplishment, especially when there's a lot of work to be done. Okay, what do you mean not quitting? Well, I mean, I just keep speaking, supporting my speaking with food. And no matter how much people agree or disagree, this is for me. This ain't for you. But hey, if you want it, if you think that I'm catering to you, hey, that's fine. You know, if you have something to write, go write it. Go write your own book on how Jillian is so crazy. And so not living in fear is an amazing accomplishment. I guess if you can't control the world out there, you might as well control how you relate to the world, right? And not all accomplishments are going to be applauded, revered, or even recognized. Some people's accomplishments are laughed at and ridiculed and even violently opposed. Remember what Tesla went through. Remember what all the different inventors went through at the times that they invented it. People weren't ready for their information. They were not. And they ridiculed the hell out of the people that are different. And make sure you're abiding by the law. And if any accomplishment is widely recognized and revered, better make sure it's not in a society that is trying to destroy itself. Because what did you just accomplish? That's the thing. When someone says, oh, guess what? I discovered a new cure for this, new cure for that. Okay, another deadly thing that's going to cause someone to then have to get another cure until they're treated to death and die one day. But when you see people that are like, oh yeah, she discovered another cure, another this, another that, another stem cell research. Okay, another torture mechanism for some cancer patient that will eventually do not want to do that stem cell transplant because it's too aggressive to their body and they die anyways. But you're seeing how people over there in the mainstream and the alternative mainstream are all about, finding another cure, and they're revering those that find another cure for something. And it's usually from these little 20-year-olds, child prodigies, that were told what they need to accomplish, and then they're like, oh, well, I figured it out, here it is, and now oncology is so happy they got another cure to go and sell you. What do you fucking do? Okay? Einstein was revered because he influenced something that a society intended to eventually implement as a self-destruct mechanism. And on top of his research, he also discovered the theory of relativity. So it wasn't like he was revered, but he was revered because, the theory of relativity, and he thought that he was helping people. So he's revered for his whistleblowing on what he thought would happen, but then that was his regret. Okay, so I don't know if he was revered for that specifically, but maybe he was. Maybe we beat Hitler to the punch. And maybe he feels regretful for that because a lot of innocent people died, but who's to say? But Hitler didn't have the atomic bomb, but they didn't know it at the time, and he didn't know it. No one really knew. So in small circles, he was revered, but he had ultimate regret. So the more famous 1939 letter, however, came to be known as the Einstein-Szilard letter, and is widely considered to be the key stimulus for the United States developing the atomic bomb, according to Lanuet, because he thought that Hitler had it. And so we beat them to the punch. And so what was the self-destruct mechanism? Well, they bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The system saw and experienced different kinds of diseases, and the outcome of the fallout that came from radiation exposure. And they discovered different cures and ways to use the diseases for different things. And they're using radiation for oncology, okay? No crisis is wasted. Scientists studied what happens after someone is exposed to radiation. So you can imagine with all the things that are going on in climate change, which is increased radiation. And you can say it's cyclical, or you can say it's, intentional, but you can't prove anything except Mother Nature does what it does. And you can best be sure they've observed people at the epicenter as well as miles away. So when you're getting direct radiation because of oncology, okay, the target of those germline cells are, going to be under some major, aggressive, deadly exposure. And so you can only imagine when people go through changes because of climate change, you're seeing a lot of growth, even people dying suddenly. All right. There's ways to do things. And if you're getting the Nobel Peace Prize, all right, he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize as far as Einstein. He got the Nobel Physics Prize. But if you're getting the Nobel Peace Prize, it might be the Nobel Rest in Peace Prize. Dr. Hayflick discovered the difference between immortal and somatic cells, thus the 50 times redoubling itself, giving oncology another avenue to work from. He won a prize for that. Okay, it wasn't the Nobel Peace Prize, but it was another prize, John something prize. All right, so the world isn't trying to save people's lives. We are in a depopulation scale down, a great reset. The Georgia Guidestones told you. Right now, the world is trying to end so many different lives at their own hand and choices. Remember, everything is through consent. Sexuality, oncology, the remedies, all the different therapies. So some accomplishments are way ahead of its time. And so, the whole J world is way ahead of its time. It doesn't fit in this society. But that's okay because I'm allowed to have a little tiny culture. So as long as I'm not trying to ram this down anyone's throat or say that this is what my claims are, but I'm putting out there theoretically, if you feel pain and eat all food and stay home and stay safe and you pull out the crap, you might be able to regrow limbs and organs even if you're born without them. But there's no guarantee because can you handle the pain and do you have the support system and all the different caveats and limitations that people would set before them, or their doctor or their family be like, nope, that can't happen, and so you can't promise this. But I could say theoretically, this could happen scientifically because, how do cells grow? They need food. They need water. They need to release some of the programming that's causing the damage in their body. People shit. When you think about it, a skinny person will have a hard time changing out that programming because they have to have something on reserve while they're in that transition process. That's why I'm saying you need to be able to gain some weight during this process so you can change out the programming and not fall victim to the old programming. You're able to change into the new world. Okay? And I don't know how that looks and what that lifestyle could be and how you're going to juggle all that. That's something that you're going to have to figure out. And what are the indicators? Well, when you're eating a bunch of food and you're feeling sick and you're also pulling out the old programming. And that's, people are like, oh, I don't have to do that. I can take this, and this. I'll tell you, you're going to have to condition your body every single day, especially when you're exposed to so much diversity out there. So that's why I don't go hang out in the public, because that's a lot of programming to change out, because the body will metastasize the diversity in the body. And if you have been exposed to somebody's demons that do attack certain body parts because of their remedies, and the body holds on to that, you're going to have to fight to get it out, because remember, you just taken on a parasitic energy that wants to stay with the host. That's why this environment is so aggressive, and sometimes you have to fight to get that crap out, because it is a parasitic energy that found a home in your immune system, and you have to fight to get it out, but you have to arm your system well enough so that way you can work with your immune system, that when you're blowing your nose and you're coughing, you're sneezing, and you're leveraging all that pressure to push it out, that you're helping it get it out. So I'll tell you, I know when my body is starting to metastasize something that is foreign, because I get bloated and my nose starts running. And I also feel the energy. I feel the energy of the growth, the life. I'll sweat after eating or being exposed to someone or something. And you'll never know really where it comes from. Sometimes you could be harboring something that finally wakes up because of a frequency change, and you'll feel the sweat. But eating sometimes triggers that because you just armed your immune system. And sometimes it's pain and suffering because your body's pushing things out. But remember, anything that's FDA approved is not poison. That is the rule of thumb when it comes to eating stuff or taking a therapy. If it's FDA approved, it's not poison. But what is your intention behind any FDA approved drug or food? I just eat. I don't take any therapies. I don't do any drugs. I just eat the food. I don't use food as medicine. I don't do all the lemon waters and the turmeric and the honey and the apple cider vinegar. I don't do any of that shit. So I'm not trying to intend to take away the pain and suffering. I eat food, and if it's causing pain, it's because I have to deal with whatever's in my system that needs to be pushed out. And that's how I'm able to characterize things correctly, because of my intention. And so right now, the world's trying to end so many different lives at their own hand and choices. Some accomplishments are way ahead of its time. That's the J world. And so patience and time. Having patience with time is quite an accomplishment. And so many of you have plenty of time. You don't need recognition for what you're doing. Just save yourself, take the time, have patience. Accomplish what you need to, even if it's just surviving your diseases and releasing those demons and developing an infrastructure to do that, and never demonizing food. Food tolerance is quite an accomplishment, because you're not proving to the world how deficient you are to your environment. People who demonize food and say food is poison are proving to the world they are extremely intolerant. Because doing what I'm doing, developing an infrastructure to save yourself in such an aggressive environment such as this, and eating all the food without demonizing it, is quite an accomplishment. Not many people are doing it, and not many people can. And you won't get applauded for it because you won't brag about it. Because you know if you do, people will shit on you. And then tell everybody they shit on you, even behind closed doors. Or behind your back. Or they think you're a goody two-shoes. Okay, when I say I've kicked all the drug habits out there, whether cigarettes and alcohol and even all the crazy sex, I stopped being that sexual actually a couple years ago. Okay? And they're like, oh, you're such a goody two-shoes. I'm not sure, they're not saying it to me, but you can only imagine out there when everyone is living off of drug, alcohol, and sex, and rock and roll, and all of that, and I'm saying, well, I just got rid of all that, I don't know, and they're like, oh, God. I'm sure they can see the rolling of the eyes, right? And so that's what the dying world will do to you, is they'll shit on you or think that you're a goody two-shoes. They don't like the living because they're trying to destroy their own life. And they've already justified it. Oh, you're supposed to die someday. And it's not for me to say they can't save themselves, okay? So I'll stop casting spells on them. But I can't say that you can do this, and I can't say that you can. I don't know. It's not for me to choose for you or even speculate. So when people choose to destroy themselves because the outcome in their world of everything they do is death, remember, they're following in their parents' footsteps. They want you to join them. And when you don't join them, it's like a cult. Some people will find a way to lure you back into their fold, into the death cult, and they use fear, ridicule, and sometimes violence. And so when you survive the world around you, you don't fall into the death cult. That's quite a fucking accomplishment. Pat yourself on the back, because no one else will. Living in my world is an extreme accomplishment, and you cannot expect anyone to understand it. Okay? And everyone will live in their world and my world the best way they can. And what are the indicators that, I'll tell you, man, the sickness and the release, and even when I started doing all that, pulling out the crap, even back in 2016, and I was still doing all the supplements. I was doing the pickle juice, and then the supplements, and eating the food, and I was getting constipated, and I was pulling out the crap. And then eventually I weaned off all the supplements. I was eating the food, but then I did so much the J that I cured myself. That's why I got so skinny. Very skinny. And then that was like, so 2018 when I was on Dr. Phil, I looked relatively okay, right? Because I was skinny. And then 2018, I was also, skinny. 2019, things were like, okay. Because I'm actually going to get my new ID or driver's license pretty soon. And what I looked like back in 2019 when I did that, I had more of a fuller face. When I do the new ID this year, it's going to be different. Okay? So then I ate all the food. Okay? And I started eating all the food in 2020 because of the whole COVID stuff. So, yeah, it was an evolution. All right, so yeah, the whole J world was definitely an evolution, and you need all the food, and you have to play the game of the whole weight fluctuation. And sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes I feel like, my stomach just turned upside down. I mean, I'll tell you, with the way these frequencies are, it's anybody's guess how it's going to affect you. And so, again, how do you know when things are going the way they're supposed to be going? You feel sick. And you stay home and you stay safe if you can. If you have to be out there, which I understand, people got to make a living, remember, every single fucking day you have to pull out that crap and you have to eat food. And you got to weigh out how much you're exposed to, how much energy you're expending, and how much are you resting and repairing. And I'll tell you, you're going to have to take that accountability. You're going to have to do that accounting ledger sheet on what it is that you're doing, expending energy, releasing demons, and feeling the pain and not treating it, and giving yourself the rest and the relaxation, not burning the candle at both ends. That's why I've just released a lot of the distractions, because I know that if I start hanging out with people and playing that game, that's a lot to juggle. And in this environment, when it's so accelerated with kinetic energy out there, oh gosh, that's a lot to account for. And it's a lot to release. And it's like, it's blowing your nose and coughing, like every morning, even at night, after eating, I'm hacking up loogies. And sometimes, like, with the last few weeks, with this whole new variant coming around, I even saw a few little greenish yellowish coming out of the loogies. Then a little bit of a nosebleed, but nothing major. Okay? And that's how I know that my body is on point. And I sleep when I need to. And sometimes I'm really awake. Or I have so much energy because the body is going through an energy conversion and it needs to release that demon. That's what happened a Saturday or so ago, when I was like so energetic. When the night before, we went to Jasmine, and I was bloated that night going to that restaurant. And then the next morning, I was like, I released that demon. No, I didn't release it yet. I was just like so energetic. And I'm like, Jason, we gotta go do this. And he's like, no, I want to sleep. And I'm like, no, we gotta do this. And I was rushing around like I was on freaking speed or crack. And then I come home and I eat food, and all of a sudden I had to go do a major, major, major dump. And that whole energetic session was the body going through its processes really fast to release those demons. And I needed the food as a carrier force, as a catalyst. That's why food is so important. That's why milk is so important. Meat, cheese, eggs. I've been eating so much deer meat the last few weeks, and yams, and I have now this espresso, so I'm doing a lot more milk and cream. It's like, oh my gosh. But in this environment, you need to, especially if you have all these different things that you have to be accountable for. And so remember, the whole World War III is imminent, right? Now, not to put fear in you, but just to warn you, okay, prepare for shit. But again, that's the 3-generation rule. World War I was to build what? Well, build a conditioning for war. World War II is to maintain, because remember, World War I was like 1914, 15, 16, 17, 18, something like that. Right? And then the 20s and 30s was the whole flapper stuff, and that was all the jazz age and everything. So World War II was like 1939, 1945. World War III, 2023. Okay? Biden is just a puppet. As you know, he just reads from a teleprompter. Sometimes he stumbles over his own words. He's an octogenarian. What do you expect? Let him do his thing. That's what all of our presidents are. And then Trump deems himself to be the savior. But again, he's violated laws that will be held against him. And right now, he's going through this process of trying to defend himself against being taken off the ballot in Colorado. So we'll see where that goes. But Trump cannot guarantee World War III avoidance, because he's saying, oh, I'm going to save you guys from World War III, and all this, and he's promising the world. And I'm sorry, you can't promise that. Things have been happening way before him. He was just given the opportunity to go and take advantage of his birthright, or of his exposure to real estate. He was given the opportunity to build up New York and be an influencer in real estate, politics, and Hollywood. You're Fired, that reality show. He had that background, but he can't stop what's already been planned even before he was around. And so anyone that says they're going to save you from what's going on, sorry, this has been going on. This was happening even before. There's people in Hollywood that don't even know what the fuck's going on. They were programmed too. I'll tell you even this, the thing with Paris Hilton, she went through some shit. She was sent off to a school. She got abused and things were happening, in her world. And her mom's like, oh gosh, like she's claiming she has no knowledge of how that would. again, I can't prove that what she went through was a planned situation so she can develop her sexuality and her icon status. But some people don't even know that their parents programmed them in a specific way or set them up to be programmed in a specific way. What do you call them? Undetectable mind control victims? So some people in Hollywood don't even know what they don't even know. So, just assume that that everything is meant to happen and just try to survive it. Because I don't even think Trump knows the bigger picture. He knows, but he doesn't. You can't stop what's already been set to roll out. And the justice system. And the system will figure out. Just believe me. That's why I don't want to become famous. You think about it, I'm already infamous. People hate me. I'm fine with people hating me than versus loving me, because then you end up, I was watching RFK and JFK last night, some of the documentaries, and even Marilyn Monroe. And then also I was attempting to watch the Malcolm X. But when you have some people that love you so much and that think that you're the savior and they're worshiping you, they end up becoming a martyr. Okay? So when you're looking for a savior, that's your Satan, and they're not, and the system will manipulate that situation. I don't know if he'll end up like JFK, but believe me, the legal system. But back then in the 1960s and 70s, it was the wild, wild west. That was basically showing you how powerful the system is. Now the system will just watch you fuck up and not even tell you when you're fucking up. They did me a great service when they kept my ass in line a couple years back, because they could have let me just do whatever and not say anything, and then we'd all be like, not where we are today. But the fact the system held me accountable so early on says they want me to evolve and stay alive. And why the system didn't come down on Diddy and Brand and Epstein and all that, because they wanted to see that play out and then hold them accountable later, where they have no recourse. The deed was fucking done. Here are the bodies. They know where all the bodies are buried. Okay? So that's why you don't want to be worshiping anyone that deems to be the savior, and you want to save yourself, and you don't want to really resist the system, because the system is already set out. You can't stop what's already been happening way before you were born. All right? And so even though I put on here, World War III is imminent, find a way to survive it. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. And don't even think that someone can promise you they're going to stop it. It's already been happening. The died suddenly should tell you. That's why I post the died suddenly. It's to condition you to expect that in your world at some point. It may not happen in your world, but if it does, at least now you're conditioned, like the system conditioned us to expect change, climate shit, all the zombie apocalypse, and all the people doing all their stuff with the saviors and all that. And so when I post all these different articles with these guys that are like, dad of 5, dad of this, dad of 6, mother of 3, mother of 10, whatever, and they're dying suddenly, I'm not saying it's going to happen to you, but if it does happen, at least you won't be fucking shocked. And at least it won't destroy you, but you'll realize that now you really got to do some shit differently, and maybe you've been relieved of distractions. I know it's a really crappy way of looking at it, but when you think about it, when my dog died, it sucked, and I was trying to save her, even despite all the backlash. And I was honest with what I was doing with her. And even had the ASP or the Humane Society come in and see what I was doing and everything else. When she finally died, it was a sense of relief. Now I could focus on myself and save myself. I couldn't save her. People may not be able to save their kids. But if their kids survive, great. If they don't, at least now you understand that maybe they didn't have the capacity to. They didn't have the infrastructure. And it'll be tragic if it happens, but at least now you won't die from it. And now it'll encourage you, hopefully, to save yourself. But, that's different for everybody. So, this whole thing with little Debbie diabetes. Some of you need a little Debbie cupcake because you're way too skinny. So I don't want to hear anyone saying how little Debbie causes diabetes, because there's that meme that says little diabetes. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Maybe they do not get enough salt, or as far as diabetes or other nutrients. Why would you blame the food? That's what people are starving to say. Who are starving to say, who have something to prove to the world, right? who want to starve out their fellow man because of their own inadequacies. I added too many words to that. That's people who are starving say have something to prove to the world. They want to starve out their own audience and make fun. I remember I was a little bit critical, probably like 20 years ago, of major obesity. Okay. The thing is, to be bigger in a society, you really have to have strong vital organs. Very strong. Okay? Right now, we have people who are bigger who don't have strong vital organs. But I'm not big, but I'm not small. I'm definitely bigger than I used to be, but not so big. But I definitely am very full figured, but like not so fat, but not so skinny. Okay? I have belly, I have boobs, I have thighs, I have a butt, and I have symmetry. I'm not bloated like I was a few months ago. All right? So right now I have enough weight on me of adipose tissue, fat, and muscle and skin and bones and calcium and all that to fluctuate with this environment. But as far as the J world and transitioning from the either ends of extremes, the people who are bigger but not so big, but a little bit bigger, have a better chance because they have a lot more room, they have a lot more reserves than someone who's really skinny. Because you're going to have to gain so much weight, but if the environment and your lifestyle is taking away the energy, how are you changing out the programming? Because remember you saw that I would get bloated and I would look like just like huge. That was the transition. That was the body changing out the old programming, and it had to have the reserves, and it had to release the old programming, take on the new programming, and then, so then it's not as aggressive when I do get exposed to new environments, because a lot of those cultures of diversity that would cause so much growth because the body's trying to release it is now gone, and now the processes within my immune system is much cleaner and much more smooth in the transition. And so, I'll feel stuff in my armpits like I did the last couple of weeks, and I'll be pulling out crap and eating a bunch of food, but that's what's necessary in this environment. So, you need to have a little bit of weight to be able to give you reserves to transition. And so somebody asked the question, why have many bodybuilders passed away during the past 3 years? And why are athletes most susceptible to dying suddenly on the field? Well, my answer is resistance is futile. It causes breakage and death. Resistance training is death training, especially in a higher frequency environment. Increased kinetic activity during the day, and then at night when the body has to reconcile with everything you have come in contact with. Develops great stress to the vital organs. The person is not giving their body a rest, essentially wearing themselves out sooner. And so you need to have a great balance of rest, muscle, and fat, and also food with high fats, carbs, and proteins. You need the fuel in this environment, especially in this environment. And when your body is mostly muscle and bones and skin, high resistance, high death rate, especially during climate change. Wake up to the patterns. And so even though people are like, well, you're so judgmental, and all this other stuff, I'm telling you, man, I understand the need for the weight. And so when I was judgmental about that, it was because it was more about the taxing of the vital organs, and that in a society that doesn't reinforce vital organs, you're in a senescence, a decay process. Well, that usually goes hand in hand, but some people with strong vital organs with a lot more weight could potentially strengthen their vital organs through the J world, so as long as they're understanding how to change out the programming and rest and relax. But again, if I'm judgmental, then I look at my world. What am I doing? Well, I'm not going out there and hanging out with a bunch of people. I'm not exercising. Okay? I'm not trying to look hot and skinny and sexual and demonize food. When my arms are sore, it's because the environment is causing the immune system to go through its own kinetic energy overnight and even during the day. And I have muscle, and I eat like yams and other foods that add on the muscle and the fat and add on the proteins. And so then let me get to this next point about judgment. So I'll cycle back to the beginning where I said about judgment. Give me a minute. My lordy. Freedom. See, when I fixed myself and I have already taken accountability with everything that I've done and explained to you that, yeah, I'm in also in a transition as far as the sexuality, that I'm married to a husband who's completely opposite of me, and so I play the game of negotiation. That's how I stay married, is I know how to negotiate. I know what I can handle. I know what I can afford. And so freedom is judging everything without targeting a specific person. Just the behaviors and lifestyle of everyone equally. Okay, so I judge just the behaviors and lifestyles of everyone equally. Equitable judgmentalism is an art, and one must judge and hold oneself to the same standard. Okay? And that's the thing, is so if someone's judging me, then they need to judge themselves. Perfect. And if I'm judging somebody else, which I do all the fucking time, then I look at my own world and see where I've come up short, where I need to take accountability, and then I go and fix it. So I can afford to judge somebody else. See, people who out there judge people and they can't afford it, but who's to say that? So let them judge me. I'll judge them, and we all judge each other, and then we just find ways to justify or account for or explain, and even bring up evidence, scientific evidence. Some people just do it just because they have their opinions. Okay, fine, good, that's your opinion, good for you. And so people who hate judgmental people can't even judge themselves properly. Who is properly? Well, people like saying, "Oh God, Jillian, you can't prove immortality, and you're supposed to smoke pot all the time because that's how you do this and that, and you're not very smart, Jillian," all this other stuff. Okay, well, I'm sure that people look at them will say the same thing that they're saying about me about them. And I mean, that's the thing. So yeah, I mean, if they're saying stuff about me, what are they saying about themselves? Oh no, they're perfect. Okay. So people who hate judgmental people can't even judge themselves properly. They can't even hold themselves accountable, so everyone else cannot judge because they can't handle the truth about themselves. So even those who hate judgmental people are also very judging about those who judge others. See, I'm going to tell you, I've faced people that didn't like me. I've even gone back and forth privately, not even publicly, like I'm trying to get a show for everybody. No, I've dealt with these people who don't like me personally through email without having to put on a show. I can deal with my critics. I don't deal with them all the time, and I don't want to, because who wants to be spiritually destroyed by someone who doesn't like you? But that information is good to have to look in my world and also observe their world. Because whatever they're saying about me, it's really about what they're dealing with on their own. And then that's just more confirmation that's why we're in a great reset, because we have a lot of people who are suffering from their own malnutrition, from their own choices, from their own addictions, their own habits. And so that's why you really can't convert or please everyone, because so many people don't have the capacity to please themselves. And when you're dealing with that, there's no way to convert them. But recognize that their judgments is based upon their conclusions, and that's fine. I have judgments based upon my conclusions, and I can talk about it, articulate it. It's not always about resisting somebody else. It's about, well, I don't want to die, okay? I want to eat all food that has necessary nutrition. I need the food to repair the cells. I need to release those demons. I understand that during this evolutionary process, it's going to be painful. And so, that's that's my side of it all. So, yeah, so to them, the mirror is ugly. Well, I don't blame you. I mean, I could look at myself. I looked at myself looking really crazy when I looked all bloated. When you have a lot to hide, you don't use the mirror, and you hate cameras. I love cameras. Okay? So it's such a weird thing. It's so hard to accept that I know that people judge each other and they don't like hearing what people say about them. But that's the thing. It's not targeting that person. It's targeting the lifestyle and the belief system equally. Like equally. How do you do that? Well, you got to find the common ground between all these lifestyles and belief systems. It's the death culture, high sexuality, and a lot of hatred and intolerance. And some people are violent, coupled with that. And some people don't put their face out there. They hide behind accounts. Well, yeah, when you're decaying and when you are not proud of who you are, you will not put your face out there. You will not look in the mirror. And you'll hate anyone that develops a reflection that you don't like, that you see in yourself. And so when I judge people, I definitely look at myself at the same time. That's my opening of awareness of how people see me because of how I see them. All right? That's the thing. That's just such a weird thing about it. Is that then I correct myself. So that way I have room to judge. People who judge have room to judge because they develop their own conclusion. And it's not for me to say if it's right or wrong. See, people judge me all the time. I can't say they haven't developed their own conclusion or even did it correctly. But again, if you don't like someone judging you, well, I don't love it. I understand it. Let me tell you, not liking someone judging you, it's a human instinct because you want everyone to like you. You want everyone to accept you. And it's not always going to fucking happen. And so since you can accept that, I can accept people don't not gonna like me. Well, I will say what I got to say. Because you're not going to be able to please anyone or everybody. So that's another block that I just overcame is the fact that it's not for me to say if people judge themselves properly. It's just the fact that I can't even be mad at people that not like me. I'll face them, but I can't get mad at it and I can't even try to convert them. But I can also look at people that don't like people that judge because they can't, because they don't, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't say anything at all. But again, that's the thing is that's a concept I keep coming back to because I want people to judge me so they can look at themselves. Maybe those that judge me can then start looking at themselves. That's the first step. See, when someone's all about love, 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 and I accept you for wherever you are, no, you don't. No, you don't. Nobody accepts everyone 100% of who they are because that means you have no boundaries. You have no boundaries. What are you trying to do? Like wear their skin? Be like a, Buffalo Bill or Edward Guy and just cut off their skin and wear it? No. And so maybe those that judge you have an opening for them to look at themselves. And they just need you as a backboard, a sounding board. Even just writing to you or even saying whatever they got to say. And that's the thing. So maybe you need to judge somebody else. Maybe you should. Maybe you should put all your judgments out there on Facebook. So then you can finally look at yourself. Right? And so those that have an opinion about somebody else, yeah, they're going through their own process. They may just stay where it's always about somebody else. But that's the beginning, is the awareness. Is even having an opinion. Oh, fucking A, man. Wow. Okay? Because those, the people that agree with me, thank you, I appreciate that. But those that didn't were the ones that keep giving me to the next level. It's the ones that challenge you. It's the ones that are mean to you. It's the ones that are like, that make your life fucking difficult if you allow them. Or the ones that keep evolving you and changing and looking at yourself and looking at yourself and looking at them. And then when it's too much, you cut off the interaction. And then you get a little bit of peace and respite with those that agree with you. But you need a little bit of both. Oh my God. I'll tell you, that's the Jewish side of this world, is being able to sit with pain and suffering and judgments and also looking at yourself. and being open to the attacks without somebody hurting you physically. Yeah. Oh, geez, that's crazy. Okay? But I'll tell you, it's not always comfortable sitting in somebody else's judgment. Let me tell you, it's not always comfortable, but sometimes it's necessary. And I have faced that. Personally faced that. Okay? But there's such thing as too much, just so you know. But yeah. All right, there's that. Okay. But I had to work through that because that is part of the Jewish side of it. That's part of the MK Ultra, is sitting in such agony of other people's judgments. But that's also necessary for self-awareness if you can survive it. Surviving other people's judgments, surviving the pain and suffering of other people's truths, and really developing your own argument is the path to an awareness that then you set your boundaries and you develop your own thought process. Because how can you develop your own thought process when you're always avoiding the uncomfortable judgments of the world? That's why it takes strength to be able to evolve, because that would mean you'd have to expose yourself to somebody else's thought process and consider it. It's not always being the mean person. It's also taking on people who are mean and nasty without them hurting you physically. But you can take their words. Oh, I've taken some words. I'll tell you, I've taken some words and they were like stakes to the heart, but I survived them. And I strategize. That's the part of the J world that people still have trouble with, because it takes a lot of energy to take stakes to the heart and take out the stake and rebuild your heart. It takes a lot. Not everybody can do it. And so people say people are afraid to confront what's going on or fight whatever. Many people are afraid and they are exposing what they can without being taken out. Okay? Or they don't want to be a target for the mainstream to make fun of, like they make fun of the conspiracy right-wing people. But I also understand as well, because some of the archaic traditions many people practice in the right-wing world. But both left and right have many things to answer for as far as sexuality, which was and is the weapon of mass destruction. Okay? So when you want to confront what's going on, it's not confronting who you think the target is. Okay? You're not trying to make a target out of Klaus Schwab. You're not trying to make a target out of the Freemasons. You're not trying to make a target out of Bill Gates. It's your own peers that you have to deal with. And yourself. That's who you need to confront, is your own peers. And you have to go back and forth with them and then finally understand their point of view and understand your point of view, and then go to your separate corners and realize you got to agree to disagree, and that's it. But there's no one to target out there. There's no enemy. It's just understanding somebody else's thought process, but not making an enemy out of some group of people. I see people still targeting the Freemasons. There's nothing wrong with them. They're the balance of our society. I don't feed into that whole, okay, let's gang up on the Freemasons or gang up on this or gang up on that. No, that's called discrimination. That's called racism. That's called intolerance. It's called lack of understanding. And so that's why the movies and the music industry is with the way it is. They're fucking trying to tell you without telling you, or they end up passed away, and some people's lifestyle caused them to pass away sooner. And you will never know the difference. You can never prove it. Everything must go through due process. Remember that. And so say what you need to say without pinpointing any specific person, place, or thing. Air out your grievances, but don't attack anyone. Because chances are the person you are attacking has absolutely no control over what's going on. Just because they're an easy target doesn't mean they are the target. Represent what you do to survive, but don't assume people are going to do the same thing. Give yourself choices and attempt to give other people choices without forcing it down their throat. And I always must remember, I am 100% personally responsible for how I react to my environment. Nothing lasts forever, and evolution is necessary. And if you don't evolve, you die. Just like divorce. People change, they can't handle it, they divorce each other, or they die. My world is a representation of how I adapt to change. It's not for me to say whether or not change should happen. Okay, people are like resisting the change. Well, who cares? If you want to resist change, fine, you'll die. But it's not for you to say whether or not it should happen. They told you it was going to happen. And they've been warning you. I've been saying shit. Change is happening, and here's what I do to survive it. And what I do does not necessarily mean you can do it. Okay, I'm not saying that you should do what I do. I'm just giving you my representation. And just because somebody or a person, place, or thing, or a group of people are an easy target doesn't mean they are the target. Just because they are your chosen target doesn't mean you chose well. It just means that the system made it easy for you to blame somebody for the changes in the world that you cannot handle. The system will give you just enough rope. And remember, I'm in the trenches with you. I'm adapting to this climate change, and it's fucking hell, but I'm surviving it because I have changed my lifestyle. And it's still hell. But there really is no enemy. But we also need to start confronting each other in a way that is not targeting anything specific. It's confronting the lifestyles and understand the science behind life and death. It's not about like, oh, I'm defending my power over my children. I'm defending my right to exist in the way I want to exist as far as this religion and this belief system. And I don't believe that people should be doing this, and this. Okay. Well, remember, we're in a society where we have children who are so intolerant and so deadly and so violent that sometimes the system's like, well, we need to have our hand in it somewhere, and they're going to have to figure out how they do that. And it's a balance between, what are parents teaching the kids and what are these kids ending up to be. So sometimes we're going to have to watch how it all plays out. And we might have kids, they'll be doing some horrible stuff, and they end up in freaking jail, and they end up, doing really horrible things because of what they were taught at home. And so when these kids do things that are horrible to other humans, then parents go on trial. What are you teaching your children? What have you taught your children? Okay, so yeah, we're not in an easy, believe me, I'm still going through that process. The fact that I keep revisiting the whole judgment stuff is still a process that I'm processing. And it's being able to sit with the pain and suffering of being judged without inviting so much of it that you die from it, but not completely running away from it, that you don't ever get to face it and examine yourself. And that's the whole evolution. You can have too much evolution and not enough. So how do you balance out both worlds? That's the issue. That's the systems. Well, that's what's going on right now with the Freemason and all the Rosicrucians. They're balancing out life and death, and they're balancing out giving people enough freedom to say what they have to say without them going overboard. And then if they do go overboard, that's a controlled circumstance like January 6th. That let people act out what they're going to do because they're going to fucking do it. So why resist it? So let them do it, but control it so it doesn't become so deadly. And let me tell you, if the system tried to resist January 6th, there'd be a lot more bodies than what was the outcome. There's a few bodies that happened January 6th, but if they were to resist, if the police were to resist what was going on, there would have been a lot more bodies. So sometimes you just can't resist. And so someone said in this one group, truth, things are changing right before our eyes, and most of society is too scared to stand up and confront it. And I said, people have confronted it. They ended up like JFK, RFK, X, King, and Lenin. And so it's not that you go and confront your government, you confront yourself and your peers. What are they doing to contribute to all of this? And people are like, well, you don't confront your peers. They're trying to divide us. You already are divided. You can't handle judgments, and you can't handle facing your own pain and suffering. It's like, yeah, it's bad. And so in this environment, eating is more meaningful, and you can actually feel the work it's doing. Yeah. Because I can feel the heat. And so skinny was how the system controlled your programming and talents. Obesity too. Evolution is not encouraged until the system condones it and forces it when you least expect it from the form you do not expect it in, like climate change. And so evolution right now is not encouraged until the system says it's okay, it's going to encourage it, and then they warn you. They tell you climate change, they tell you economy changes, they tell you all these different things. And they warn you. But like with the whole J world, they weren't condoning people taking on more of the salt because that was an activation that people were not prepared for. But how do you prepare for salt activation? Well, they were waiting for 2019, but I intercepted that. We really did. We intercepted that, and we gave people some kind of preparation for climate change, because the J world was climate change. It was total climate change. And it was an evolution, it was an activation. And if you're skinny, okay, but in that environment it wasn't bad. People were still eating. If you're obese, it wasn't bad. People were still eating. But if you were in hospice, well, you're a Hail Mary anyways. There's no guarantee you're going to be able to survive and take your life back. And so the death culture is very seductive, requiring groupthink mentality and tons of socializing. So I didn't have the word for it yesterday because I was still like in a fog of getting over whatever I had the last couple of weeks. But all of us are descendants of Adam and Eve, and some were chosen to carry on the human race and evolve it, and many resist evolution, called war, and died suddenly. I told you a long time ago, I'm not that special. You are not that special. Some people chose to evolve and others resisted and then blame. And there were many Adam and Eves and many Gardens of Edens testing humans way back during antiquity. Always testing humans. And you are being tested right now. A tale as old as time, evolution, resistance, war, death, and blame. And in new societies and cultures, now you know you're being tested. Choose well. We were always Pangea, which is basically all the continents put together, and we didn't understand what that actually meant. But yeah, we're all basically related. It's just we have a lot of diversity, and we have to have enough diversity so we're not reproducing the same things and weakening it. That's why the Great Resets, because when you keep reproducing the same genetic lines like you're seeing right now, people are weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Kids are intolerant. Okay, so you have to have enough diversity so you can handle evolution and have different strengths and weaknesses to make up for the strengths and weaknesses. And so Asian culture, you are also Genesis, Adam and Eve. Evolution develops specific phenotypes. And so it's interesting that the Asian culture doesn't even look at the Bible. But they all are descendants of way back in the hominids that went through the whole genesis of the chosen ones, right? The ones that evolved the human race, whoever they are. You could say Jew, but see, the Jews came first, and there was the Christians, and there was the Muslims. Okay, so we are all Jewish, when you think about it. Just because we chose today to be a Muslim or a Christian or agnostic or Confucius or something else doesn't take away from the fact that you all came from the same line of people that were all part of Genesis and Adam and Eve. Experiments. And so when I said that I didn't want to deal with the Bible, and somebody else said that same thing too, well, they're part of a Vietnamese culture that was more into the Asian New Year, the horoscopes. And I don't want to hear about the Bible and all that, but the more I resisted the Bible, the more I realized it was the Old Testament that I really needed to examine further. And so Asian culture, Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, who else? Filipino. You're all Genesis. You're all Adam and Eve. Evolution develops specific phenotypes, okay? The eyes and all that stuff. I got away from the superstitious horoscopes and New Age numbers. I took my info back to the roots of mankind, Adam and Eve and Genesis. I'm tolerant to all types of religions. I mean, I don't care what you practice. Just don't ram it down my throat. Even the New Age ones, but everything can be traced back to Genesis and the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve is everyone, and everyone is Adam and Eve. And so I will not be distracted by offshoot religions and or spiritual dogmas, even with my own Asian Vietnamese culture background. And that is and was the old world of control of women and men. Because you see that even in the Asian culture, they're choosing men in families over the women. They rather have boy babies than girl babies. Or girls are being taken advantage of and used as slaves or broad mares. Or, yeah, sex trafficking. That's huge out there in the Asian cultures out there in the poor places. Okay? And so culture equals petri dish. All the isms around race and religion and ethnicity and melanin stem from intolerance, deficiencies, and malnutrition or decay. Everything in the past, present, and future is necessary. Just survive it if you can. I hope you do. If you do not, thank you for your contribution to this world. So that's why I had to, everyone that I've met the last 7 years, even the last 49 years, was all an exposure to a culture, to see patterns, to see behaviors, to see even insight to what they went through and what the belief systems are. And yeah, it really all comes down to the Middle East and the Old Testament, and then also science about the hominids. Okay? And then so I had to get to know intricately what the Vietnamese culture was like. And so I did befriend people who were in that. And those are people that I was next to in the J world. And nothing wrong with them. Nothing, I mean, great people. And I appreciate the support in the beginning. But evolution. Okay? Evolution is like, that we got what we needed from each other. And then we move on. Evolution. I mean, I can be proud to say that I don't know anyone, I'm not talking to anyone or involved with anyone in my childhood. People say, oh, I have the blessing to have everyone that I know in my childhood I'm in contact with. Well, okay, that's great, but I'm proud to not know anyone in my childhood that I'm in contact with, really. I have people on my Facebook that I knew from childhood, but I don't really talk to them. It's not like they're commenting on my Facebook or I'm commenting on their Facebook. I really don't have any interaction with anyone in my childhood. Okay? So, so yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's my evolution. You move on from, you learn something and you move on. Because I'll tell you, life will continue to happen. People die out there. People will change. People will go through whatever they go through. If they're still around 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and they're not decaying or, off the deep end or whatever, yeah, awesome. But what about now? We don't try relationships now. I do have them. People in my current world and on my Facebook, but I'm also evolving very quickly and supporting the evolution with food and all that stuff. And so the new world is phasing out the old world order. That is why all the die suddenlies. And if you do not understand what is going on, you have a place to blame to go. Air, food, and water, public health, therapies, and the system of governance. Choose your scapegoat. People do. Just watch your Facebook. Resistance is futile. Causes breakage and also die suddenly. Which is also why if you are in my world, you have yet another option if you can handle it. Handle it to choose from. And my world is not glamorous. And people do not brag on what they're doing in my world. Conditioning for evolution is not pretty. It is a shitty process with tons of energy, and I should know I lived it the last 3 years, and even the last 7 years. But it's necessary if you want to surpass the Hayflick limit. And one must be eating all food in the food supply. One cannot be food intolerant or political about food at all. Okay? And so as far as how women were controlled through sexuality and all of that, and being skinny, okay? Skinny was how they controlled your programming. And when the system didn't need those types anymore, they're all skinny, then they can just change the system. The climate will just change, and then all the skinny people will be gone. We have girls that are bigger, right? But they're getting skinnier. Some Hollywood stars are saying, oh, look, I'm getting skinnier because of this. Yeah, the environment is cannibalizing them. But they will sell whatever they sell and sell that image and sell products on their way out the door. And then one day they die suddenly. And the system took resources from them and used them and abused them on the way out the door. I wouldn't call it abuse it, but hey. So you see how women were controlled through the clothing. She was allowed to be respectable and covered back in the 1800s, but at the turn of the century, the clothing came off, starvation protocols, and the heavy sexuality and drug use was encouraged. So you saw through the time, 1800s, 1940s, 1950s, then you see the 1960s. The 1800s, they were covered. The 1940s, they were sort of covered, yeah. And they were still skinny. 1950s, she had a little bit of meat on her and everything. Not super chiseled, but okay. And then the 1960s, a little bit more chiseled, a little more defined. And then that now is the ultimate thing to look like. And so, yeah, Adam and Eve were not that special until they were chosen to be used as a lesson. They were like any other hominid, lesser evolved species until they were both chosen to be part of a human experiment. Now you get the choice. Become more evolved and survive, or succumb to the fate of Adam and Eve and cast out of the Garden of Eden. Everything going on today was and is from your consent. Everything is. You chose, have chosen, continue to choose your own personal 10 plagues. Okay? And so the system did a number on women, telling them that food, sugar, salt, carbs, meat, milk, and eggs, and fruits and veggies are poison, encouraging anorexia. And of course, the men encouraged it with their own issues of intolerance and forcing their daughters and wives to have children. Hence, future died suddenly. I know it's already too late for many people. There is no magic pill to gain or lose weight to tolerate evolution. And if there is, you will pay with your life. It's just observing the playbook. And some people will survive the playbook, others won't. I know the risks out there in this environment, and so I just list out the risks and everyone makes their choices. Okay? And so the whole thing with the judgment, I had to work that out because it is a balance. It is a balance to deal with. It's a balance of taking in the judgments and dealing with it and facing your own bullshit and then correcting the behavior. And on the other side of it, too much judgment is like, holy shit. Okay? And you got to be the one to balance it out. It's not for me to say that you shouldn't judge or say it's bad or wrong or if you did it properly or not. It's just a matter of how much can you handle and what is it that you learn from all that judgment. And is it too much or too little? Just like evolution. Judgment is like evolution. You can have too much of it or too little of it, and you must be able to handle what someone says about you and what someone says to you. But then, see, that's why my Facebook is open, because I just block and delete people. I'll give people the opportunity to say what they say. And if they come too judgmental and to whatever, I already deal with the judgments out there as far as the different groups. I get emails and all that stuff. But I still give people the opportunity to speak. So I can handle the incoming shit. Sometimes I read it, sometimes I don't. It just depends. But that's an evolution. Sometimes you'll see stuff that isn't favorable to you, and you know there's some nasty shit that's being said, and then it sparks another evolution of a thought process. You never know how negative comments can actually contribute to your evolution. But then you also have then you also must have some kind of boundaries of how much is too much. Because I'm not into self-abuse either. Okay. But so I'm the one that manages how much evolution I receive from anyone, whether from the environment out there to my haters to anything out there. And sometimes I do welcome a little bit of negativity to get the engines moving. And it's for my own personal gain. The other person's going to do what they do. You can't change them. They're doing what they have to do for their survival. And if they have so much in their mind about my information, they have to get it out. Hey, write it. My mother used to say, if you're mad at me and you don't like me or whatever, for whatever it is, just write it out, Jillian. But never turn to violence. But write out and air out your concerns. Just say your piece. And sometimes you just have to say your piece and then crumple up paper and throw it away. Just get it out. So I really understand. Doesn't mean you have to read everything people say about you. But sometimes it's nice to, if you want to get, if you want to get motivated to examine your own bullshit, and you want to be able to write about it and express it. Because I'll tell you, the freedom is in expression. The freedom is in the written word. The freedom is able to speak. The freedom is not being angry anymore. The freedom is patience with everyone around you. But being able to speak in such a way. And sometimes it comes out of anger, sometimes it doesn't. It's a constant evolution. It's a constant really working on how you deliver the message. And sometimes the message I deliver can be really harsh, and sometimes it's really right on point. But you got to hear yourself. So, anyways, I got to go. I'm going to go do my thing, but I need to speak that because this would be a lot. If I were to do this on Monday, it'd be a lot. So, or not Monday, Tuesday. That's Christmas. Tuesday. So my husband will get home in a couple hours. And I'm just going to do and just organize my thoughts. And I have the freedom to do that. All right. Bye.